Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide Jason, and today we meet one of the most chaotic gods of all, the legendary trickster himself, Loki. Oh boy, is he a mess. Now, before we begin, I need you all to familiarize yourself with one little saying. Okay, here it is. Loki, you bloody idiot! You got that? Let's all repeat it together now. Loki, you bloody idiot! Seriously, Odin's patience is legendary. When it comes to Norse mythology, there is a general rule of thumb which will guide you. It is Loki's fault. Even if Loki doesn't show up, it's probably still his fault. Now, if you watch the Marvel movies and comics, you might know some of his origins, but here is the mythological one. Loki is the son of a Jotun, Frabati, and an Aesir goddess, Laufey. And this is why you will hear him called Laufey's son, or son of Laufey. He would also have two brothers, Hilblindi and Balester. Now, where to begin with his antics? There's a lot of them. Let's start with one of his children, Sleipnir, the eight-legged horse. The gods were looking to create fortifications around Asgard in the early days. A strange builder arrives and says that he can do it in 3 seasons, and asks only for the hand of the goddess of beauty, Freya. He says he can do it without the help of anyone except for his horse, Svaldavari. So, why is this Loki's fault, you ask? Well, he brought the builder to them and handled the negotiations. At first, the gods were pleased at his progress. For 2 seasons, he progressed swiftly, and summer was nearing. Days before the deadline, the gods hold a summit. They don't intend to give Freya to the man, and send Loki to prevent the builder from finishing the wall. So that night, while the builder went to collect the last of the stones, Loki took the form of a mare in heat, and pranced before Svaldavari, throwing it into a wild state that broke free of its reins and bindings to chase after him. With his horse gone, the builder couldn't finish his work. Suspecting treachery from the gods, he went into a fit of rage and revealed himself as a Jotun. While the gods called upon Thor, who took down the frost giant with his hammer. But Loki had a price to pay. His transformation was so perfect that he got pregnant and soon gave birth to Svaldavari's child, an 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, while Odin would take this horse as his own. Now Loki did have other children, this time from relations with a Jotun named Angrboda. She would give birth to the sun-eating monsters Wolf, Fenrir, the world-encompassing serpent Jormungandr, both of which are to play a critical aspect in Ragnarok. Lastly is his daughter Hel, the goddess of death who lives in Helheim. She is usually said to have a face which is half white and half black. Loki does have other children with his wife, the goddess Sigyn. She would give birth to Nafari and Vali. The first was eventually killed, and that is usually by his own brother, but there's some disagreement on that part. There might have been others named Vali, including a son of Odin. I'll get more on his wife in a while. First, I want to ask you something. Did you know that Mjolnir was not meant to be a one-handed hammer? Well, Loki is directly responsible for it. Thor had a wife named Sif, and while she was asleep, Loki decides to pull a prank, and cuts off her golden hair. Thor and Sif are livid and threaten Loki. He agrees to make it better, and seeks 2 dwarven brothers, Sindri and Brok, and makes a bet that they can't make items of quality beyond that of the other dwarves, and Loki bets his own head. Yep, if the dwarves win, they get to smash his head. Well, they get to work, and so does Loki. He turns into a fly and buzzes around and harasses them. It doesn't matter, as they make Draupnir, an endless gold-producing ring, Gullimbresti, a golden boar that runs faster than any horse, and lastly Mjolnir. Loki's actions do succeed in making the handle much smaller than intended. Yep, Mjolnir was supposed to be a 2-handed weapon. Loki escapes due to a loophole in the bet, but Thor gets his hammer. It is a mountain buster weapon, and enchanted to always return to Thor's hand when he threw it. There are more powers, but that would be better saved for discussion on Thor himself. But there is another story regarding Loki and Mjolnir. And in this one, Loki isn't actually at fault. I'll admit it. Thor awakened one day and Mjolnir was missing. Now, for some unknown reason, Thor's first thought was to go and talk with Loki. Did he suspect that Loki was responsible for Mjolnir's disappearance? Maybe? But he trusts that Loki isn't responsible for it, and they go and speak with Freya. She agrees to lend Loki her feathered cloak, which grants flight. Well, he does dilly-dally a bit, but eventually goes to Jotunheim and speaks with Thrym, who boasts that he stole the hammer, and that he has hidden the hammer 8 leagues underground. A league is about 5 kilometers, so 40 kilometers or 24.87 miles underground. So hidden in a cave makes sense. But the Jotun is willing to negotiate. He'll give the hammer back in exchange for Freya, who absolutely refuses to marry the Jotun under any condition. Well, Loki returns to Thor and Freya with a scheme. They are going to disguise Thor as Freya and Loki as her handmaiden. Now, I need to stress this. In Norse mythology, the gods all have shape-shifting powers. This is really important here, else I don't care how good your disguise is. Who in the world would mistake Thor, one of the manliest men imaginable, for Freya, the literal personification of beauty? Else, how in the world would this trick ever work? Except, even with this impeccable disguise, Thor is the one to nearly destroy their plan. When the wedding party begins, food and meat is brought out, and he eats and eats and drinks. Thor eats and drinks like himself, and not the goddess of beauty. Loki covers this up by saying that she has not eaten in over a week while trying to get there. Then the Jotun lifts the veil to kiss his would-be bride and sees fierce eyes. And Loki says that it is because she hasn't slept. Finally, the dowry payment of Mjolnir is brought out. As soon as it is laid in his lap, Thor throws off his disguise and starts kicking butt. Oh, but there are more misadventures. And then we have Hodor and Baldur. Baldur is the son of Odin and Frigg, and he has visions regarding his own death. Now Frigg sets out throughout the world and makes literally everything promise to never hurt her son. That is a lengthy feat to be sure. But when it is done, the gods had a celebration. They would gather around to throw, shoot, and swing various objects at Baldur, which all had promised to never hurt him, and they don't. Odin wasn't idle during this, and traveled to Helheim and learns of a prophecy that Hodor will kill Baldur. But he doesn't place much stock in it since Hodor is blind and kind-hearted. It makes no sense to him. But Loki is an issue, of course. He talks with Frigg and finds out that there was one thing which never swore to her, and that was mistletoe. It was so small that she didn't think it could hurt her son. Now, Loki then found Hodor sitting on the side and not partaking in the festivities. But Loki offers to guide him and produces a mistletoe arrow for him to fire. With his assistance, Hodor fires and ends Baldur. This was the first of the signs of Ragnarok. And now we get to Iduna and Loki. My god, this is bad. Iduna tends to the apples of immortality, which the gods eat to keep themselves youthful. So yeah, she is very important to the survival of the Aesir. But this is a story about Loki, so you are already probably thinking about what happens. Iduna was married to Bragi, and there was an eagle pestering him. So he threw a pole at it. But this was actually the storm giant or ice giant, depending on the version, Thrazi. Oh, but in doing so, Loki got stuck to the eagle, or in other versions, the eagle grabs Loki. Regardless, the god of mischief begs and pleads for his safety, and when the giant reveals himself, he makes Loki agree to bring Iduna and her apples. And he does just that. Yep, another example of Loki, you bloody idiot! Then the gods begin to age, and call for a meeting. And it doesn't take long to find out that the last person Iduna was seen with was Loki. Well, under threats and violence, his lies are revealed, and he is forced to go save her. He gets Freya's cloak of feathers to turn into a falcon and flies off to the giant, who he sees fishing at sea. Now Iduna was not at his home alone, but being guarded by the Elo woman, or Death Elves. But Loki is clever, and turns Iduna into a nut to fly away with her apples. But the giant sees them and turns into an eagle to pursue them. Behind him churns a storm. When the Aesir see the falcon Loki returning with the eagle close behind, they spring a trap. As Loki flies over the walls of Asgard, they light a fire which catches the giant, who crashes to the ground and is abruptly slain by the gods. And everything is back to normal. But why are they still tolerating Loki? He nearly got them all killed then. What is their breaking point with him? And we need to talk about another of Loki's, well, Loki being Loki. And this is probably the biggest, and that would be the Lokasena. It begins with Aegir, a sea giant who is throwing a party, and even got the gods and elves to come. The gods even begin praising two of his servants, Fimifang and Eldir. And Loki is a freaking jealous idiot and kills Fimifang. This gets the gods all riled up, who attack Loki with shields until he is forced to flee. The gods then return to the hall and continue the party. Loki goes out into the woods and sulks, but the other servant Eldir comes and speaks with him. he tells Loki that the gods are discussing their combat abilities and haven't had a single nice word to say about Loki. He decides to return to the feast and add some malice to their drinks, but he is warned that he'll pay the price. But what did I say about Loki, you bloody idiot? As he struts back in, the hall goes deathly quiet. Loki calls the gods arrogant and asks why none are able to speak. He demands to have a seat and a drink. Bragi stands up and says what everyone is thinking. But Loki calls out Odin in an old blood oath. Odin promised that he would never drink if they were not both served. So Odin asks his son Vidar to give his spot to Loki, and then serves the trickster a drink. Loki offers a toast to everyone, except Bragi. Now Bragi says that he will give a horse, a ring, and a sword to prevent hatred. Thus begins the fighting, or a battle of insults between multiple parties. We get a dozen tales of infidelity, affairs, and scandals, and even a tale about Loki hiding underground as a milkmaid. Loki targets the other gods. Iduna, who holds the apples of immortality. Gefjon, who is as wise and knowledgeable as Odin. Frigg, wife of Odin. Odin himself. Freya and Freyr, and on and on. You know, it might be shorter to list those he doesn't insult, which was his daughter Hel and his wife Sigyn. They in turn reply with their own insults. Now, there was a god absent from all of this, and that was Thor. When he arrives, Loki sets on Thor, who is already in a foul mood. And he threatens Loki, who keeps pressing and pressing, and Thor slowly edges to striking him. Eventually, Loki backs out and leaves the hall. He goes and hides as a salmon, but the gods find him, and all the threats and insults that they made come forth. They bind Loki to a stone using his own son Narfi's intestines, and the goddess Skadi would affix a serpent whose venom would continuously drip onto Loki's face, burning and scarring him. Loki's wife Sigyn would hold a bowl over his face to catch the venom. When the bowl is full, she goes to pour it out, and Loki thrashes about and causes earthquakes. And he is to remain there until Ragnarok. Only then is he to be freed, and will join his sons Fenrir and Jormungandr against the gods. So what do you think, adventurers? I honestly don't know why the gods put up with him for so long. It was one thing after another. And this isn't even all of his antics, such as the whole situation which gave rise to the dragon Fenrir. Yep, there is so much material, I could probably do a few more videos on his antics. Odin and the gods must have been beyond patient with him to tolerate his existence for so long. Honestly, he might even be worse than the Greek gods, or Tiamat. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.